A precarious calm has descended upon the Middle East. After 12 days of direct, unprecedented conflict between Israel and Iran, a ceasefire has taken hold. This truce, announced dramatically by United States President Donald Trump on June 24, 2025, brought a halt to a dangerous escalation that saw missiles fly and air raid sirens become a feature of daily life in both nations. The agreement, brokered with intense American pressure, was presented as a monumental achievement, a step back from the brink of a catastrophic regional war. The world watched with bated breath, hoping this pause in hostilities would evolve into something more durable than just a temporary reprieve from chaos. The stakes could not be higher, with global markets and diplomatic channels hanging in the balance. The ceasefire's first hours, however, were anything but smooth. They were marked by a tense and familiar pattern of accusation and counter-accusation, testing the agreement's strength from the outset. Shortly after the truce was meant to begin, Tehran accused Israel of launching a final wave of strikes against its territory, a claim that Jerusalem did not immediately confirm or deny. In response, Israel's military reported that it had successfully intercepted another barrage of Iranian missiles aimed at its cities, suggesting Tehran was the first to violate the terms. This immediate friction underscored the deep-seated mistrust that a single diplomatic agreement could not erase. It showed that the path from a ceasefire to genuine peace is fraught with peril. This period of direct confrontation was triggered by a series of escalating events, culminating in what Israel perceived as an imminent nuclear threat. The conflict itself was a brutal, high-stakes exchange. It involved targeted strikes on Iran's nuclear infrastructure, which the United States participated in, and retaliatory missile attacks from Iran that sent Israeli citizens scrambling for bomb shelters. For nearly 2 weeks, the region was on a knife's edge, fearing that any miscalculation could ignite a wider conflagration involving militant proxies and other regional powers. The ceasefire was therefore not a product of mutual understanding but of mutual exhaustion, and the realization of how close both sides had come to a point of no return. As of today, June 25, 2025, the guns have largely fallen silent. Both Israel and Iran have publicly stated their commitment to upholding the ceasefire, but with a significant caveat: each side's compliance is conditional on the other's. Commercial air traffic is resuming, with Iran reopening its airspace and Israel lifting most of its home front restrictions, allowing a semblance of normalcy to return. Yet this quiet is deceptive. Below the surface, the core issues that fueled the conflict remain unresolved. The truce is a fragile membrane stretched over a volatile landscape, and its long-term viability remains the most pressing question for the entire international community. In Jerusalem, the narrative is one of resounding success. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed his nation, declaring the 12-day conflict a historic victory. He framed the military campaign as a necessary and decisive action that had successfully neutralized the threat of nuclear annihilation from Iran. According to Netanyahu, the strikes on Iran's nuclear program have set Tehran back significantly, ensuring Israel's security for the foreseeable future. He warned, however, that the mission was not entirely complete, stating that Israel must still dismantle the broader Iranian axis and defeat its proxy, Hamas, in the ongoing Gaza war. This victory lap is aimed at a domestic audience, reinforcing his image as a strong protector of the nation. Iran, in contrast, has projected an image of steadfast defiance and resilience. While acknowledging the damage from Israeli and American strikes, Iranian officials have downplayed their strategic impact. They insist that their nuclear program, which they have always maintained is for peaceful purposes, will be rebuilt. Tehran's state media has focused on its own missile capabilities, celebrating the retaliatory strikes against Israel as a demonstration of its power to breach one of the world's most advanced air defense systems. For the leadership in Tehran, the narrative is not one of defeat, but of having stood up to two powerful adversaries. This message is crucial for maintaining legitimacy both at home and among its regional allies. The true extent of the damage to Iran's nuclear ambitions remains a point of contention. While President Trump claimed the U.S. strikes completely and totally obliterated the sites, a classified assessment from the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency paints a different picture. The report suggests that key facilities like Natanz and Fordow were not destroyed and that Iran's program may only be set back by a matter of months. It is believed that much of Iran's highly enriched uranium was moved to secret, hardened locations prior to the attacks. This raises serious questions about the long-term effectiveness of the military campaign and whether it has truly eliminated the perceived threat or merely delayed it. Ultimately, both nations have emerged from the conflict with their core positions hardened. Israel, emboldened by its perceived military triumph and strong American backing, has vowed to act again if it sees any sign of Iran rebuilding its nuclear project. Iran, having endured the attacks and demonstrated its own retaliatory power, remains committed to its regional strategy and its nuclear rights. The ceasefire has not fostered reconciliation. Instead, it has created a pause in which both sides are likely reassessing their strategies for the next, perhaps inevitable, round of conflict. The declarations of victory and defiance are not just rhetoric. They are statements of intent for a future that looks just as contested as the past. The United States, under President Donald Trump, played a central and often contradictory role in both the conflict and the subsequent ceasefire. President Trump was the one to publicly announce the truce, casting himself as the indispensable dealmaker who pulled the Middle East back from the abyss. He celebrated the ceasefire as a personal victory, a testament to his administration's peace through strength doctrine. This narrative was reinforced by his claims that U.S. strikes had permanently dismantled Iran's nuclear capabilities, a statement that was quickly challenged by his own intelligence agencies. Washington's intervention was decisive, but its messaging has been a mix of bold declarations and behind-the-scenes complexities that have left allies and adversaries alike trying to decipher the true American position. The relationship between the U.S. and Israel, while publicly celebrated, showed signs of significant strain during the crisis. Prime Minister Netanyahu lavished praise on Trump, calling him the best friend Israel has ever had in the White House. This came just hours after an incensed President Trump publicly berated both Israel and Iran for violating the ceasefire almost immediately after it began. In a stunning live television moment, he expressed profound frustration with both nations, a tirade that reportedly left Israeli leadership stunned and deeply embarrassed. This episode revealed a crack in the facade of perfect alignment, highlighting the transactional and often volatile nature of the alliance under the Trump administration. Further complicating matters is the administration's contentious relationship with its own legislative branch. The White House abruptly canceled classified briefings for the U.S. Congress on the Iran strikes, sparking outrage among Democrats. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Chuck Schumer accused the administration of hiding crucial facts and evading accountability for its military actions. This lack of transparency has fueled suspicions that the reality of the strikes and their outcomes does not align with the triumphant narrative being presented to the public. The move has deepened partisan divides and raised fundamental questions about oversight and the executive branch's authority to engage in acts of war without congressional consultation. Globally, President Trump's handling of the crisis has elicited a mixed response. In a surprising move that seemed to undercut his own maximum pressure campaign, Trump stated that China could continue to purchase Iranian oil, a comment the White House later tried to walk back. This sent oil prices tumbling and created confusion about the future of sanctions. Meanwhile, European allies like France, Germany, and the UK have warned they are prepared to snap back UN sanctions if Iran does not recommit to nuclear limitations. The ceasefire may have paused the missiles, but it has launched a new phase of intense high-stakes diplomacy where the US's unpredictable approach remains a central and destabilizing factor. The immediate impact of the ceasefire has been a collective sigh of relief across the globe. Oil prices, which had spiked during the conflict, fell nearly 6% following the announcement, easing fears of a global economic shock. The reopening of critical airspace and the lifting of civil defense restrictions in Israel signal a fragile return to the status quo ante. However, this surface-level stability masks a deeply unsettled regional dynamic. The conflict has fundamentally altered the rules of engagement. For the first time, Israel and Iran have engaged in direct state-on-state military confrontation, bypassing the long-standing shadow war fought through proxies. This precedent makes future direct clashes more, not less likely. The long-term consequences are far more uncertain and concerning. The U.S. intelligence assessment that Iran's nuclear program was only modestly set back suggests the core driver of the conflict has not been resolved. If Iran accelerates its efforts to rebuild and potentially enrich uranium to higher levels, it could trigger another, even more devastating Israeli or American response. The conflict has also done little to resolve the other simmering crises in the region, most notably the war in Gaza. That conflict continues to rage, with dozens of Palestinians reportedly killed while waiting for aid, even as the Iran ceasefire was being negotiated, a stark reminder of the multifaceted and interconnected nature of Middle Eastern violence. The role of the international community will be critical in the coming months. European powers are attempting to salvage some form of nuclear diplomacy, threatening to reimpose sanctions to bring Iran back to the negotiating table before the 2015 nuclear deal's provisions expire in October 2025. Regional players like Turkey have cautiously welcomed the de-escalation, urging a broader focus on resolving the Palestinian issue as the root cause of instability. However, with the US pursuing a unilateral and often erratic policy, and with Russia and China watching from the sidelines, a cohesive international strategy to build a lasting peace seems elusive. The world is fragmented in its approach to the region's problems. Ultimately, the question of what's next hinges on whether this ceasefire is treated as an opportunity for genuine de-escalation, or simply a tactical pause. Will it lead to back-channel talks and a new diplomatic framework, or will it be used by all sides to rearm, regroup, and plan for the next round? The fundamental grievances between Israel and Iran have only been deepened by the bloodshed. Without a significant diplomatic breakthrough that addresses the nuclear issue and Iran's regional activities, this ceasefire may be remembered not as the end of a war, but as a brief and tense intermission before the curtain rises on an even more dangerous act.